Hello everyone and happy Saturday. We are back for another session with some pages in our Cabinet of Curiosities in this Jelly Junkadori style book. I love this. And see, when it starts getting chunky, how rewarding is this journal? And I'm telling you, you could make this journal like all the time. And these journals are wonderful to operate just as book is art, finished books that you could sell, you could share, you know, with your with family, gifts. I mean, these are just, I think they're just precious treasure troves of all kind of ideas and bits and pieces that we just accumulate in our studios and get to use in some really neat and fascinating ways. So I told you this was going to be a really good book. I forgot to show you all this from last week. This was given to me by Teresa, who was another workshop participant. Actually, her and Gypsy are good friends, and they drove over from New Mexico. But she had put these packages together. In the last video, you might have seen me opening it and actually using some of looking at using some of the papers in here. But this little piece, I just loved it because it actually, I know these are maybe like angel wings, but I think of them as birds. You know me, everything a wing is a bird. I loved, and it's funny because I probably wouldn't have put purple on this journal, but it's something nice about this really earthy, deep purple, almost like an eggplant with the browns and what have you of my journal. I think it just brings it out. And she really got me with this little crystal. Like she glued this little pointed, terminated crystal on here. And then of course create. Everything about this was just so special. And every time I look at it, it'll remind me of Teresa. So thank you, my friend. I'm sure you may be even in the chat right now. Introduce yourself. I know you're a little shy sometimes, but it seems that you're just amazing. And Gypsy was the one who gave me this fabric, her friend. So I wanted to point that out because I really like that. So even like you can make a pen, it's just one of the pens on, you know, like on a pen back, you know, using a bottle cap. But yeah, you may have something like this yourself and just didn't think about clipping it on the front of your journal. So, wanted to make sure I shared that. Okay, so to this week's pages, I love this spread. It's like, you know, you guys know how much I sort of like abstract line, mark making, all that kind of stuff. And a lot of this stuff would be things that I just would throw away. But in our journal, on our pages, and these are really, I look at these as sort of book as art journals. I don't really see these as like kind of this is not the classic junk journal, because maybe these are bits and pieces and maybe stuff that would have been throwaways. We didn't actually throw them away, so they can't technically act as junk. And they're just all special pieces that in themselves, maybe as a full piece don't work, but when we cut them up and use them as small bits for collage, I just see these journals as just large, I mean, just as a chunky collage style book as art journal. I really believe that's what these are. And I feel like they fall into that category because to me, every page is just a small work of art. And our theme was Cabinet of Curiosities, but you know, we could have had any theme, right? And love these. We could have had any theme. And you could certainly make these books to be thematic, of all kinds of, you know, topics. And also you can make them not to be as chunky. If you wanted to make them a little smaller, you could. I mean, there's so much that can be done with these, right? So I wanted to talk about that because to me, conceptually, as I've really had time to spend thinking about my art and the art that I share here on YouTube, it really had me thinking that probably in a way I've kind of probably not properly named this technique. It's my Jelly Junkadores, and I just love that because I think that it's a style of the traveler's notebook style. It's a lot of it, you know, I'm using a lot of gel prints and throwaways in here, and you know, I'm using the word junk loosely to mean all those things that they're not whole pieces of art in themselves, but they're certainly not pieces I plan on throwing away, so I'm going to use them. So as you notice that this piece right here actually was from a print piece of tissue, onion skin that I ran through my printer, and I didn't take care of running it through properly, and it kind of caught and ripped, and I made sure to turn the printer off, and I carefully saved it, and of course I wasn't throwing her away. And so when I pulled that piece out when I was working, I noticed, I'm like, you know what, this piece of it works just fine, and you know, it'll be perfect to put down in the journal. So you see me sort of ripping that off of the other pieces that are tattered. And I didn't throw those pieces away because I'll end up using those. And so I first used a bit of this. This is tracing paper that I painted on using my matcha paintbrush, and created these sort of circles. And I knew that it was going to go down translucent, so we still get to see that yummy paper underneath. You know, wherever I can preserve that and show that, I think it just makes that consistency throughout the book. So I put that down first, and then using this bit of tissue, onion skin I mean, that had printed image on it, and you can still see below this image the ledger, some of the ledger marks from this paper. Also, this is some coffee stained calligraphy paper, and then just a random piece of silk scrap that I had. I felt like it picked up the coffee staining nicely, and it just gave me some extra texture that I was looking for. And since I had this sort of hanging out on this side, I find that if I put fabric on the other side, it makes it more of a tab, and it allows it to be used more like a tab than just sort of a piece of fabric that kind of will keep on not ripping, but fraying. That's the word, fraying. It turns it into more of a tab. So I like that. I felt the colors really went nicely with that. And at the same time, I was looking at using this. Now, this is just another piece from the paper here. This was just a large sheet of calligraphy paper, and when I was printing on the gel plate, the extra paint I just off printed onto this paper, and I really got some good images. And then here again, this is just more of like Seth's spray inks. When I'm using them on the plate, a lot of times if I want to change colors, I'll just, you know, dab them up. And this calligraphy paper is good because it takes the inks nicely, and it leaves me with something that if I want to use it, I've got it on some paper that will glue down nicely and allow me to continue to print on top of it. So this is another random piece from that collection. And I thought that it, you know, it just tied the pages in nicely. But something about this circle and her tossing this hat, like the block of that hat tossing off into the spiral of this circle, I just felt told a story. Just a real visual story there that was quite unexpected when I was putting these two pieces together. And it just goes to show you how the right brain works to really start putting together stories in a way that you don't even consciously think about. You're not conscious of the fact that that's what's happening. But if you look and pay attention to the small transitions and the small things that pop up, to me, my mind will start saying, yeah, she's tossing her hat away and into this spiral, like off, you know, into the great beyond. And I love that. So I really like that image, and I felt like I needed something else on this page. I wasn't sure, so I went to the stash of my papers that have, you know, text on it from various Eastern cultures. And I really like this one. I felt that the circular nature of it, like this one is full of a lot of circles in this text, really mimic the circle there. And I felt like also it was translucent so you could see through it. So when I glued it down, we could still see the underpainting, which is always nice. And this color is not exactly a black. It's like a deep brown. So if you're looking at it, you know, like if you can see it in person, it's like it's just subtle enough to kind of pick up the tans and browns of this and yet still work nicely. So I really end up loving this spread, and you know, that just kind of started off with a bunch of abstract type of off pieces. And of course this piece that I just love her face. I love her attitude. You know, we've used this before in our slides. And so, you know, a lot of my slides, you guys know, we talked about that early on. Just make sure you print it, because I don't keep the subscription month to month. So I print a lot of stuff out when I have it, and then I just cancel it until I need it again, and it stays in my app store. So then when I want to use the app again, I just repurchase it. And so I think it's fair to the app and it's fair to me, because I don't need to pay $4 or $5 a month for if I'm not going to use it. But because it's in the app store, when I do reactivate it, I just pay that for that month. And then I just make sure that I print a lot of stuff. So I'm still using a lot of things that I printed from early on when we were working with that app. So I wanted to bring that up because, you know, I want you guys to understand that I'm still using that stuff. Where is it? Remember all of this right here, this here, but I printed a lot of stuff off. So I hope that you guys are doing the same, and maybe remind yourself to go back to the stuff that you printed and make sure that you're using it. And if you didn't do it like that, then just go ahead, make sure you got all your slides in order, and go ahead and reactivate the app, and then, you know, print a lot of stuff up and then have it available for use. Okay, so now on to the next spread. I really like the way this one came out, because it's very neutral and it's very, you know, I think quiet in a way, but it's still really bold and powerful. So I had printed, I knew that I wanted to put the Art Foamy script on here using my 𝐒𝐄𝐖𝐒𝐓𝐓𝐄𝐑 fountain ink, right? It's in the 𝐒𝐄𝐖𝐒𝐓𝐓𝐄𝐑 color, right? Which is this beautiful kind of gray blue color. And so I stamped that in the beginning because I really wanted it to dry while I was working on the other stuff. And I love the simplicity of it on that page. I had a lot of staining on the page, and it was something about it that I just enjoyed. I just enjoyed it looking just like a manuscript. And so some of this yummy paper that was sent to me by, I don't want to get the name wrong, but you sent me this and my, the coconina. Love on me and just say, if you're in the chat, just shout out and say, yeah, Robin, I sent it. I don't know what the name of this is. I think it's like this cocoa fiber. I think you said you got it. Did you say you got it at Blick? Arts, wherever it is. I love this stuff, and I've been peeling it off and using it. This time I just glued it down entirely. At one point I used it as a pocket right here, and I really like it. It's a strong paper. It's a straw paper. But here I just decided to put it down as a fragment over top of this document. And I think it just adds beautifully to the document. On this page, I had a piece of newsprint that I had been spray painting another project on. It was kind of red spray paint, and then I had overpainted, was painted with some gold. So this was just literally a random piece of newsprint that I had been spraying red and gold paint on, and I saved it. I really liked this. So when I came across it again, I thought, you know what, this will be nice opposite this here. And then this piece right here was an overhang that I had brought to the other side when I was working on this spread early on, that napkin with the coral. And remember, a lot of times I say I'll wrap things around because I never know what I'm going to do when I get to that side. Well, sometimes I'll cover it up because I don't want it. But in this case, I really loved it. And it had the 1736 on it, or 736 on it, which went beautifully with the script. We had this extra scripting there, just a little bit of the red from the coral, and I thought it was perfect. So I made sure that when I tore the newsprint, that I tore it around so that I preserved that bit of it. And it just, you know, it just gives that little extra bit of history, extra visual information and texture. Oh, love it. And then I had this this tea bag, and I just had the feeling that I knew I wanted to use this tea bag somewhere in my collaging. And then I had the idea to stamp it with the same Art Foamy stamp. And this one I think this is the Parisian 1 and 2. This is the Parisian 1. This stamp is the same one that comes with this one. And I just love this. I love what this image does. I just think it just does a beautiful reversal of scripting, but it gives you a full space just to work on top, other stuff on top of. Love it. But this one comes with this one. I believe those two are together. And so I stamped it here on the tea bag. And so you get that bit of little bit of text. And what I like about this, even though these texts are harmonious, they don't necessarily read, oh, identical text, you know, like the text blocks are so subtle in the way I designed the stamps, that I really do believe that they create this sense of sort of neutral text. And that's exactly what I wanted, because I wanted to be able to use them. And for you guys to use them, I wanted to be able to use them over and over again in so many different ways, but I didn't want them to always look like that's the identical same stamp again, you know? So I opened the tea bag up, and then a lot of times I will leave the string, and I just feel like that's just an extra visual element. Even the little staple that holds that string on, I'll keep all of that on my tea bags. I just like it for extra texture, and just, it's all a part of the story. So we glued that down. And of course the staining of the tea bag was there, you know, and I just love it. So I love the way this signature came together in just a really nice, beautiful, you know, sort of abstract kind of way, but at the same time, just telling a really subtle story of text and texture, color palettes. And then what I also liked is that bit of silk that was on this page. How nicely does that blend against this page and that size? So that's nice when that kind of thing continues to happen. And I'm telling you, I think it's always because of the right brain just constantly working behind the scenes in ways that we're not even conscious of. So when you have these little happy sort of accidents or whatever, Bob Ross, you know, happy accidents, it really is a more structured process of the consciousness in the right brain collaborating with the left brain while it's working. And for us, it's you know, it's that happy accident. It's sort of like that deja vu kind of feeling. But I honestly believe that the right brain is paying a lot more attention in this process than we're ever aware of. And maybe because we're not aware of it, that part of our conscious field just gets to work with wild abandon. And I love that. So I really like the way this section has come along. And also I want you to note that I'm somewhat conscious of the idea of working from warms to cools, and then I'll start working warms back in, you know, kind of back and forth between sort of these warm and cool palettes to warm. And you'll find that throughout my journal, I'm moving like that. And I am somewhat conscious of that, the idea, because I love black and white, but I love earth tones too. So I'm always kind of thinking between, when I've kind of got a few signatures that seem like they're warm, then I'll start thinking, okay, let me start putting some cool tones back in. So over here is a good example. This was a lot of warm tones going on. you know, there have been a lot of warm happening here. And so I knew I wanted to work back into cool. So we went into the cool sort of icy purples, these kind of cool tones, this icy pink. But because they have a vintage tone to them, even here, the warm papers kind of introduces it into sort of these cool tones. And so I'm flipping back and forth. So think, you know, as you're really looking at your journal, look at it and see if you were doing some of that, maybe unconsciously. See how your palettes might be bouncing back and forth. But it's something to consider, because what it does is it helps to make your work interesting. It makes it harmonious. So it's not like all the same tone and all the same color going throughout your whole journal. It's stuff that I want to introduce to you now that we've been working along in this, because I didn't want to like try to say all this from the start, because it's just too much. And if this type of style of journaling is new to you, like you haven't done this with me before, I know I've done this style over the years, and some of you are familiar with it and been working with me. But if it's new to you, I don't want to inundate you. But as you continue to work forward and make more of these, you want to start thinking about colors that not only, of course, you're thinking about this part, because you want to make sure your colors are working together. But then your 10%, just maybe that color that makes your other colors just really pop and gives that unexpected kind of feeling to them. And also now, let's say you're looking at your book now and say, okay, Robin, I'm almost done and I don't have that push back and forth. Then look at your colors and decide what your 10% pop is. And you can literally go back and start reworking some of that color on some of your page spreads. So not on all of them, but you may go through. So let's say you were working a lot with, let's say, blue tones and purple tones. Well, I find that pinks can be a pop for that. You could even use gold and silver as your pops. Let's say you didn't use a lot of that and you do like metallics. So you can go back through your pages and add those as pops. Lime green, if you kind of like bold colors, lime green works beautifully with purples and blues. So kind of go on your color wheel and sort of go opposite of whatever colors you're using on the color wheel into your third, into your what they call tertiary colors, or your third. So as opposed to using a yellow or a green, use a lime green, which would be opposite on the color wheel from your blue. I'm on this side, but it's on this side. So from your blue. So lime green would make a nice pop. So go ahead and pull up a color wheel, and no need to have that in your mind. Go on to you know, Google a color wheel, and then look at your palette and see what have you mostly been using in your book, and then look opposite that color and find colors in there that you really like, but just let that be your 10%. So you're not going to use a lot of it. You're just going to use small amounts of it. So I would say in my journal, red would be a good example of a 10% color, because I'm using red throughout it, but I'm not using it every page spread, right? But I'm using it enough that it comes up enough to kind of keep on creating that interest in an otherwise monochromatic palette. Like this right here gives me that pop. This little bit of red hanging off there does. So red is oftentimes, even like in here, that bit of red, that becomes, a lot of times red is my 10% color in my palette, because I do like it, but I wouldn't want like full pages of it. But I love it as it harmonizes with the golds and the tans and the ochre of my palette. So that's just something to start thinking about now that you're kind of along in your journal. It's a good time to go back and see, right in the beginning I had the red. This is a good time to go back and really think about, got a little sticking here. What's this? I'm going to show you what was going on here. Just kind of, I've got to be very gentle with it because I don't want to lose. It's amazing how the, looks like it's going to transfer. So the piece of acrylic that I have on here on the washi tape, it's stuck to this acetate piece. And this amount did come off, I'm feeling like I can carefully peel this off and put a chunk of it back on. And then I think what I'm going to do, so this doesn't happen again, is I'm going to go ahead and coat. I'm going to end up coating this with some sort of fixative. But you can see see that paint is on there, and I want to get that off because I want it back on here. Fortunately, this is double-sided tape, so see where does it go. So that's going to go back down there. This will go back down there. A little bit of this up here. And it's okay. The major part is still there, but and then I'll make sure it didn't stick to this because it won't stick to the paper, but it's, you know, acrylic likes sticking to acrylic anyway, number one. And number two, it's been very humid here in Arizona. And so I think what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna put this back there right now because I don't want it to stick again. So I'll find another place for this. Let's find another spot real quick. Here's good. And then this will be fine because it won't transfer again, but I'm going to use, actually, I have it right here. This acrylic wax has been doing some amazing things. You can't get it here in the States, but you can get it in the UK. So those of you who can get it, I think Ken Bromley does this one. So I'm just going to put, it dries clear, but I'm just going to put like a little dab on here so you can see how I'm going to fix it. And I'm just going to really rub that into this acrylic. If you have some Dharma encaustic wax, the cold wax, that will work in this case. If you don't, you could use matte medium. Let that dry. You can use matte medium here. That would work. Well, not matte medium, because matte medium is going to have, you got to use something waxy, because matte medium is going to have, if you have a similar piece like this, or if you're finding that some of your acrylic is sticking to itself, you need to put something down that's more waxy so that this will dry clear, but you need something a little more waxy so that it'll act as a barrier between the acrylic of your gel prints and whatever may be opposite that it could be sticking to. So that's another trick that you can do, but that basically fixes it. I'm gonna let it dry. And this, for some reason, seems to dry really matte and sort of tacky. I mean, and not tacky, I meant to say. So let's see how that does. But I thought I would just show you the fix. So think about our 10% pop. This is a good time, like I said, to go back through and evaluate everything. Pull that color wheel up, look at that, see what that 10% color would be for you. And yeah, let's just keep on working through this journal, and we're getting there. And so enjoy time in your studio. Remember to thumb up the video. Thank you so much. As always, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit the bell for all so you get all of our notifications. Join us over in the premiere when it pops up. We have a lot of fun over there, chit-chatting it up on Saturday mornings. And yes, until next week, lots of fun in your studios, happy creating, and so much love from my studio to yours. Bye-bye.